Hello my friends, in this video we'll be taking a look at the autosomal DNA results, predicted phenotype traits, and G25 results of a Mesolithic period hunter-gatherer from northern Russia, from Arkhangelskaya Oblast right here, Pyshanitsa in Arkhangelskaya Oblast. This is actually really close to the city of Kargopol. I think the city of Kargopol is located, yes, it's right here. And there is a reference for Kargopol Russians on Uroginsky 13. So in case you are, maybe if you're of Russian heritage and you are scoring closest to Kargopol Russians on Uroginsky 13, just know the city of Kargopol is located right here. Maybe this is maybe 20 or 30 miles from the location that the current sample I'm looking at is from. And this is an Eastern hunter-gatherer. So in terms of the heritage of this Eastern hunter-gatherer, it's essentially mostly of ancient North Eurasian descent. Ancient North Eurasians were an Upper Paleolithic Siberian group that lived in Siberia, also in Central Asia, and they sort of spread over from Siberia to Central Asia, Eastern Europe, West Asia, South Asia, and the United States, currently the United States, Canada, Mexico, and South Americas. But they are originally from Siberia. They are an Upper Paleolithic population. And they are the majority of ancestry of Eastern hunter-gatherers. Then there is also Western hunter-gatherer descent, which is the indigenous population of Europe. And there is also Caucasian hunter-gatherer ancestry that is present in this Eastern hunter-gatherer. There is not that much of it. It's only 1.4%. But it is also present. There is also a little bit of Caucasus hunter-gatherer ancestry present in this Eastern hunter-gatherer from Arkhangelskaya Oblast, from Pyshanitsa, 30 kilometers south of Kargopol. So let's begin with this result. First, we're going to start with the mitochondrial lineage. The mitochondrial lineage is U4A1. The Y DNA is R1A. Do we have a more precise subclade than just R1A? We are not going to find anything more precise here with my trait predictor, but let's see if we find a more precise subclade with within the information that's here on the spreadsheet. We see R1A 1B, whatever that means. I'm not sure what that means actually. I'm not sure. Maybe you can write in the comments what that means, R1A 1B, because I don't understand what that means. Wait, let's try to read that. It's M459. So it's not Z645. I think M459 comes before Z645. Actually, no. I think it's a different clade because Z645 is R1A1A, and this is R1A1B. So this is actually a different subclade. That's very interesting. I'm not sure how legitimate this is because I've seen multiple times that I've seen incorrect information on the spreadsheet. So maybe you can try to run this file through YSEC Clade Finder and see what it scores. I'm not going to do that, but you can try to do that if you want to. Let's go ahead and see what this individual scores for trait predictor's Noshakot calculator for phenotype, and we're going to look at the results with my trait predictor. I already did look at this sample previously in my previous videos, but it was such a long time ago, and back then trait predictor was very different from the way it is now, so we're going to look at it now, and we're going to compare, see what's different. So first, for Noshakot, it is scoring brown eyes. It is scoring black hair, so it's very dark brown eyes, black hair, light brown skin at 94% likelihood. You can pause and look at the percentages. I'm not going to go over them in too much detail. You can see there is 0% odds for blue eyes. It's very dark in terms of eye color. 0% odds for red or blonde hair, very dark in terms of hair color as well. 0% odds for palest or white skin. It's very dark in terms of hair, skin color as well. It's most likely got curly hair, curly or wavy hair, which is a little bit of a surprise because you don't expect Eastern hunter-gatherers to have this type of hair texture, but maybe it's not so surprising because it is only scoring 1% for kinky hair, and kinky, I mean, it's not so surprising. Curly hair is it is found at a pretty high rate in Eastern Europe. So I guess it's not so surprising. For nose shape, it is scoring even percentages for Greek and snub-shaped nose. And now let's look at the coloring related variants. So we see 0 here. This already tells me that with snipper 3, this individual is going to score brown eyes. This is a very telltale sign of brown eyes with snipper 3. There is no BEH2, no BEH3. Once again, brown eyes with snipper 3. Heterozygous for BEH1. Very interesting. But because no BH3, no BH2, and 0 light color variance here, this already tells us that this individual is going to score brown eyes with snipper 3, not hazel or green, brown with snipper 3. and brown with Y-sec as well because of this genotype right here. So Y-sec is very, Y-sec is very unreliable. It's only going off one genotype for eye color pretty much. So you can't really trust Y-sec's predictions. Snipper tree is a little bit better because it's a lot more polygenic, but still, it's very easy to predict what the individual is going to score with snipper tree. Only one light color variant in this variation of SLC24A5. Very, very surprising. Most Europeans have two. So this individual is actually quite dark in terms of pigmentation of skin. And I guess this is what we see with the result as well, isn't it? So we see light brown skin, which is very dark for European standards. So yeah, this person is very dark in terms of skin color. Right. And no light color variants in any of the SLC45A2 variations. So yeah, very dark. Very, very dark. Very different actually from the rest of Eastern hunter-gatherers I've looked at recently. So this person is actually very, very, very dark. Doesn't have any of the depigmentation variants that Europeans typically have. So this person is darker than what's typical for Eastern hunter-gatherers in general, because not only do they not have any of the blue eye haplotypes in HERC2 region, they also don't have any of the light color variants in SLC45A2 or SLC24A5. They have one light color variant here, but that's having heterozygous genotype in this variation is very atypical, unusual for Europeans. Most Europeans have two light color variants, and that includes Eastern hunter-gatherers, that includes Anatolian farmers, that includes even ancient North Eurasians. So this is really atypical. This is an unusual genotype for a Western Eurasian in general. This is just how unusual this is to see. No light color variants in this version of IRF4, so this is just a hunter-gatherer thing that in general, European hunter-gatherers tend to have light color variants here, which predisposes them to light pigmentation of skin, eyes, and hair. In this case, we are not seeing any light color variants, so we are already seeing a lot of dark pigmentation variants in this result. And this does explain the result, because this person is a lot darker than in the result. This person is a lot darker than what is typical for other Eastern hunter-gatherers. We see light brown skin. We see 99.9% also black hair. This is different from what we see with the other Eastern hunter-gatherers I've looked at recently. So this person is like quite a lot darker than what's typical for the rest of Eastern hunter-gatherers. Quite a lot darker. And however, they do have some light color variants as well. Like for example, these two genotypes in Kettle G that predispose them to light pigmentation of skin. For example, this right here, these genotypes are kind of they do offset the pigmentation of skin a little bit to being lighter. And no light color variants in MC1R, so no predisposition to being ginger. I am not going to look at the snipper 3 results because I already know they're going to be brown, but you can, maybe if you want to, you know what you can do if you want to, you can pause the video and you can look at this sequence, and if you are such a nerd, you can just pause the video and you can copy that and you can put that into snipper 3 and you can look at it yourself. But I am not going to do that for you because I don't want to spend time on it. Let's look at the Phenotype Oracle. Okay, so with the Phenotype Oracle, let's reset. The closest phenotypes are this. Actually, I think I should look over the snipper 3. I just realized how ridiculous what I said was. It's so ridiculous. No. I am gonna look at the snipper 3. It's a couple more minutes, but I should do it. I think it's no. What I said was ridiculous. Yeah, so it is brown. You see, it's brown. Yeah, but no. What I said was crazy. Okay, so for the Phenotype Oracle, the closest phenotype is this, followed by this, followed by this. All of these phenotypes kind of look the same. When you think about it, they all kind of look similar. They have different vibes. Like, for example, this phenotype has more of an Asiatic vibe, whereas these two kind of have a more European or Middle Eastern vibe. I'm not sure what exactly is the reason for it, especially the woman here. The woman looks very Asiatic. Maybe it's the eye shape, maybe it's the skin tone, I'm not sure. But the top phenotype has a more of an Asiatic vibe, whereas the bottom has more of a Middle Eastern vibe. But these are the phenotypes closest to this individual in terms of what they look like, and it does fit the criteria because we remember it's got brown eyes, black hair, and light brown skin. And for the mixture, the Phenotype Oracle, we see the closest mixtures are a mixture of European phenotypes plus, actually dark colored European phenotypes plus South Asians. Dark colored European phenotypes plus South Asians. There's actually a phenotype mixture that is dark colored European plus Australoid. light pigmented australoid. So we see there's a South Asian shift in this phenotype. And that does make sense because ancient North Eurasians were very South Asian looking. Not only did they have a very significant South Asian shift in their autosomal heritage, in their autosomal DNA, they score South Asian components on various genetic calculators, but they also look very South Asian in terms of their appearance. So it makes sense that a person that is in an Eastern hunter-gatherer who mostly has ancient North Eurasian ancestry, they retain some of these South Asian characteristics in their appearance. So that does make sense. Alright, let's close that. We do see some European components here as well, like for example this mixture, 50% Cro-Magnon, or I guess this is stranded phenotype, plus 50% South Asian, or here, 50% stranded plus 50% this ambiguous Mediterranean phenotype. I'm not sure why this phenotype right here is showing 50% Basque plus 50% South Asian. I'm not exactly sure because this phenotype should be showing if the individual is scoring high for a Greek-shaped nose, but I don't think this individual was scoring very high for that. It was scoring 50-50 for nose shape. So I'm not exactly sure what they are scoring. So, like, they're scoring this phenotype in the mixture. Maybe there is a reason. There's other reasons as well. There's other components that play a role. Okay, actually, let's look at the EGAR results. For the facial morphology panel, it looks like they have European genotypes on all variants in EGAR. So we did not see any East Asian phenotypes in the facial morphology oracle, in Phenotype Oracle, which makes sense. They did not have any East Asian genotypes in EGAR, any East Asian alleles in EGAR. They have a genotype for longer midface length, a genotype for increased odds of protruding nasal bridge, genotype for intermediate nose size, nose pointing up, genotype for lower odds of missing teeth, slightly thicker eyebrows, and intermediate eyebrow thickness. By the way, all of this was taken into account. All of this stuff actually was taken into account for the Phenotype Oracle. So when you see these results, that takes into account everything that you see right here. No, not here, but everything that you see in the facial morphology panel gets taken into account for the Phenotype Oracle. And more. There's a lot more variations that get taken into account for the facial morphology for the Phenotype Oracle. Right. Now let's go ahead and look at the biomarkers panel for this individual. And somebody asked me on YouTube for the blood group for this individual. We're going to look at that later. That's going to be an end of the video. We're going to get to that in a couple minutes. So for vitamin D, this individual is scoring way below average for the odds for levels of vitamin D. Let's look that up and see what they score for levels of vitamin D. Hold on. Okay, so there's 5 variants that have to do with levels of vitamin D, and they got dangers associated with genotypes for 4 of them, and another one for decreased odds of vitamin D insufficiency, which is good. So decreased odds of vitamin D insufficiency means that's good. That's a good genotype. So that doesn't have a warning attached to it. The rest of the 5 genotypes, 4 of them, have warnings attached to them. So that makes sense. That's the reason why this individual is scoring so low for the levels of vitamin D. All right. And generally with vitamin D, the lower the worse. You want to have higher levels of that. For cholesterol, he is scoring higher than average levels of LDL cholesterol. That's unfortunate. Lower than average levels of HDL cholesterol. That's also unfortunate. Lower than average levels of glucose. That's good. Higher levels of hemoglobin. That's okay. Higher blood pressure. That's unfortunate. Lower level of iron in the blood. That's good. No hemochromatosis here. So no Celtic curse for this individual. Higher level of sex hormone binding globulin. Lower level of red blood cell count. Lower number of telomere length. So there is predisposition to a shorter lifespan. Your telomeres are essentially these non-functional regions at the end of your chromosomes. You see there in the picture here, the functional regions are in the blue, and the telomeres are in I guess this maroon or orangish color at the end. So they're non-functional regions at the end of your chromosome that sort of waste away every time your cells are produced. And you want to have longer telomeres because the more there is to waste away, the longer it's gonna take for your functional stuff to remain intact. And while your functional stuff remains intact, you continue living and you don't die. And after your telomeres actually do waste away, that's when you start to age and you start to decay and you start to get old and you start dying. You start to getting all these health issues and complications and you get old, right? So telomeres are very important in your biological age. So in the context of this individual has slightly shorter biological age because they have shorter telomeres. For expected height, he's got slightly taller expected height, so he's predisposed to be a little bit taller than average. Not much taller, only 5 millimeters, but still a little bit taller than average. All right, let's close that. Let's look at the polygenic risk scores. We're gonna ignore everything that's close to 1 and look at stuff that is extreme. So low odds for kidney stones, very high odds for hemoglobin E disease. That's very interesting. So definitely very much predisposed to hemoglobin E disease. Low odds for migraine, high odds for lupus. Very interesting. So we might want to look at the HLA gene panel. Very low odds for gout. Cool. High odds for eczema. Cool. I'm just gonna skip glaucoma panel entirely. High odds for cataracts. High odds for AMD. Very interesting. Sort of high odds for rheumatoid arthritis. Sort of high odds for Tourette's. Low odds for epilepsy. Sort of high odds for asthma. So once again, I want to look at the HLA gene panel because we see high odds for asthma, and we have already seen, lupus. Sort of high odds for lupus, and they both have to do with the HLA gene panel. So this is not a coincidence. We have to look at the HLA gene panel in a couple minutes. High odds for leukemia. Sort of high odds for myopia. Low-ish odds for primary biliary cirrhosis. Low odds for stroke. Very high odds for male pattern hair loss, but that's very typical because Europeans and people of European ancestry tend to score higher for odds of male pattern hair loss. That is not surprising whatsoever. He's got below average odds for atrial fibrillation. So in his ancestry, it is typical for people of his ancestry, and his ancestry, I mean Europeans, North Africans, Middle Eastern people. It is typical of people of European ancestry to lose their hair much quicker than for people of African descent or people of East Asian or Chinese or Australian descent, right? And that includes Eastern hunter-gatherers. I'm not saying that there is definitely, in my opinion, personally, I think there's definitely a bias towards the Middle East. I think the more Middle Eastern ancestry you have, the more likely you are to lose your hair at a young age. I definitely think that Northern Europeans are sort of more protected from male pattern hair loss than Middle Eastern people are. In my opinion, the Middle East is sort of like the hotspot of male pattern hair loss and the Norwood Reaper. But still, all Europeans are affected, and that includes Eastern hunter-gatherers. All Europeans are severely affected by the Norwood Reaper. He's got lower odds for atrial fibrillation. He's got lower odds for deep vein thrombosis. He's got average odds for cardiovascular issues. He's got low odds for ADHD. He's got low odds for unipolar depression. He's got high odds for bipolar type 1. He's got high odds for schizophrenia. Very cool. This is a pretty high score. I haven't seen scores that are this high. I don't normally see scores that are this high for bipolar and schizophrenia. He's got average score for type 2 diabetes, and he's got average score for type 1 diabetes. He's got a very high score for Alzheimer's. This is actually really interesting. I have not seen scores that are this high for Alzheimer's in a long time. So we want to look at the Alzheimer's in this panel. Alzheimer's is very interesting. So this is the highest score. This is the highest thing that he scored for. And he's got very low score for multiple sclerosis. Well, that's very interesting. So definitely some predisposition to Alzheimer's here. 3 risk variants for breast cancer of 24. None of them are in the important variations. Below averages for prostate cancer. 11 risk variants for testicular cancer of 22. And 2 in all the relevant variations in Kittel G. So he's quite cooked when it comes to testicular cancer risk variants. He's definitely quite cooked because he's got the risk variants in all the relevant variations of Kittel G. But once again, it's typical for Europeans to have the same type of genotype here as him. So is he really cooked if everybody in Europe has the same type of genotype as him, pretty much? Not really. Not really. 3 risk variants for celiac disease out of 12, pretty typical. And do we see anything else? Crohn's disease, no important variants. Do we see anything else? We see 1 risk variant for Jacob Creutzfeldt here, and that is probably a miscall. I don't think it's genuine. We see 7 risk variants for allergies out of 28 total. That's kind of low. That's pretty good. And we don't see anything else. We see 1 for Hirschsprung, but this is probably a miscall, and we see 1 for Pfeiffer, also probably a miscall. So we see a couple miscalls here. We see 1 for myosclerosis as well, also probably a miscall. We do see a couple miscalls in this file. I am inclined to believe that all of these rare variants that I found here are miscalls because they are just so uncommon that seeing 4 in the same file leads me to believe they are miscalls. Normally you wouldn't see any. Alright, now let's go through the monogenic traits and find out, especially I want to find out what contributed to the Alzheimer's score. So first for warrior versus warrior, he's scoring definitely warrior. Very predisposed to being a warrior. So if you take these genotypes in COMT, MAOA, MAOB into account, this is a lot of genotypes to take into account. He's very much predisposed to being a warrior. Very European trait to have. And I noticed that it's very much widespread among Eastern hunter-gatherers to be warriors. So essentially the dichotomy of warrior versus warrior has to do with how your dopamine reuptake is and how much activity of COMT and MAOA enzymes you have. COMT and MAOA enzymes are enzymes that break down dopamine in your central nervous system. So if you're a warrior, you got more of these enzymes and more activity of these enzymes, and you got quicker dopamine breakdown, so you have less dopamine in your system, lower dopamine levels, and higher stress resiliency. If you are a warrior, on the other hand, you got lower activity of these enzymes, and because of that, you have more dopamine in the system, slower dopamine reuptake, and more dopamine in the system, so higher dopamine levels and lower stress resiliency. It also has to do with ADHD, so it actually also affects ADHD score. So if you're a warrior, for example, you'd score lower for ADHD score. If you're a warrior, you'd score higher for ADHD score. For dopamine D2 receptor sites in the brain, this has to do with the DRD2 gene. So DRD2 gene encompasses all of, all of these variations. So all of these have to do with DRD2, and for DRD2, this individual is scoring intermediate or higher number of dopamine D2 receptor sites in the brain, actually scoring highest for intermediate. So there is 43% for intermediate and 40% for higher. So this individual has predisposition to intermediate number of dopamine D2 receptor sites in the brain, intermediate predisposition to such conditions as bipolar or schizophrenia. Very, very interesting. And for levels of 5-HT and serotonin, this individual has a predisposition to intermediate levels of 5-HT and serotonin. So intermediate predisposition to such conditions as, say, depression or anxiety. No dwarfism, really good to see. Short form 5-HT TLPR, well, we already saw that, so higher risk of depression. Pretty typical. And all right. For lactose persistence, this individual has intermediate odds of lactose persistence. They do not have any European variants for lactose persistence. They do have one variant for being lactose persistent in LCT, but this is not exclusive to Europeans. This is a variant that is present in all world populations, and it's not very recent. It's probably very ancient, actually. So this is not something that can be tracked down to Europeans or Bronze Age populations of Europe. No, this is something that's very, very ancient. For empathy gene, OXTR, they're scoring higher or average level of empathy. Very good to see. So based on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 SNPs, they're scoring higher level of empathy. Really good to see. Now let's get to Alzheimer's. Let's see what they score for that. So they have a risk variant for Alzheimer's in APOE. So because of that, obviously, they're going to score much higher for risk of Alzheimer's. They don't have any risk variants for Alzheimer's in APOE2, but they do have risk variants for Alzheimer's in this variation of APOE, right? So because of that, they're scoring much higher for the risk of Alzheimer's. For multiple sclerosis, no risk variants in HLA, really good to see. But we're going to get to the HLA gene panel in a couple of seconds. For cardiovascular issues, Lower odds of cardiovascular issues for the cardiovascular panel, really good to see. For telomere panel, we looked over that. For vitiligo panel, one risk variant for HLA gene panel, and 0 risk variants here. So it's really 1 out of 4 risk variants for HLA gene for the vitiligo panel. So 1 out of 4 risk variants is really good. We are probably, once we get to the HLA gene panel, we are probably going to see really good results. I think I looked past over the diabetes results, but we see type 1 diabetes very unlikely. We see slight decrease in risk of type 1 diabetes, 7-fold decrease in, yeah, based on what we see here, I think the HLA gene panel is going to look very, very good. Based on what we have seen so far, the HLA gene panel is going to look very... We can actually cheat and go look at it right now. Oh, actually, it doesn't look so good. There's 27% odds of highest odds of autoimmune disease, and... No, it looks sort of good, and the highest percentage is still lower odds of autoimmune disease. But I do wonder why there is such a high percentage for highest and intermediate. Let's look at it right now, actually. I'm curious why it's the way it is. So, there is this genotype which leads to highest odds of multiple sclerosis. This is unfortunate. There's also this genotype. This is also unfortunate. There is... Oh, okay, wow, okay. Yeah, okay, I see why. So this is why. It's because of the genotypes in HLA-B. Yeah, I see why. And there is also the genotypes for celiac disease right here. Okay, yeah, I see why. So it's mainly these genotypes for risk variants for HLA-B27, B27 syndromes. That's really unfortunate. That's actually kind of crazy. It's great. It's great that I added this because this is really important to look out for. So this contributed big time to the HLA gene panel being the way it is. And because it's a different gene, it's a different subsection of the gene. HLA is all these different genes that are located right next to each other, so you could sort of group it into one big gene, but technically it's different genes that are located right next to each other. So if you split them up one by one, it's technically different genes, right? And they don't have to be inherited together. So you can have a really good genotype in D, DQ, DR, DP, like here for example, but you can have really shitty genotype in B, as this is the case here. Like, this is a really shitty genotype in B, for example. Yeah, okay, so this makes sense. Because of that, because of all these genotypes, this individual is scoring this for HLA gene panel. Yeah, it's not looking too good. But I guess it could be worse. It could still be worse. Alright. Let's get back to the miscellaneous section. No micropenis. Does not have micropenis, really good to see. Impaired muscle performance, likely endurance athlete rather than strength or power athlete. Then, not an Asian flusher, lower odds of alcoholism and normal risk of esophageal cancer. For drug response, should I even talk about this, to be honest? What can we talk about here? Slightly increased risk of cannabis-induced psychosis. It is typical for Europeans to have, I think, TT in this variation, which leads to protection from cannabis-induced psychosis. But there is such a wide spread in terms of the genotypes that you can have Europeans with any kind of genotype, really. I have TT here, but you can encounter Europeans with any kind of genotype, as is with people of any race with any genotype. But it is slightly more common to meet Europeans with TT than Europeans with CC in this variation. And T is the allele that protects from cannabis-induced psychosis. I'm not sure why Europeans ended up sort of selecting for protection from cannabis-induced psychosis. Maybe it's because our ancestors have been smoking cannabis for its recreational purposes a little bit longer. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe you can write that in the comments. Why do you think that is? But it's just kind of like a statistical reality. The T allele is slightly more common in Europeans for whatever reason. This individual does not have any albino variants in OCA2 or TIRP1. Really good to see. He does have a risk variant he does have a risk variant for familiar Mediterranean fever, which is really surprising because it's a Mediterranean condition. Mediterranean condition, and he's not a Mediterranean whatsoever. He's an Eastern hunter-gatherer, as far from Mediterranean as you can get genetically. For the MTHFR panel, he's got a genotype that leads to a reduced efficiency in processing folic acid and slightly higher levels of homocysteine. But there is another genotype which leads to lower odds of various health issues and lower levels of homocysteine. So both of these genotypes affect the homocysteine panel, and overall, the net effect would be a good effect. The net effect that they have to the homocysteine panel is a good one. So I think the homocysteine panel is going to look good. That's my prediction, but we're going to get to that in a couple seconds, maybe in a couple minutes. Testicular cancer, genotypes that lead to increased risk of testicular cancer. This is not surprising whatsoever. We already looked at this. Rare diseases and traits panel. We're going to skip over all that because I don't really want to go over. This is boring, really boring stuff. Rare diseases and traits panel. 5 times odds of recalcitrant atopic dermatitis. Very uncommon genotype. Really interesting. So there's predisposition to recalcitrant atopic dermatitis. Look that up. Pause the video. Look that up. Look that up. Pause the video and look that up if you care. 1 risk factor for panic disorder. Cool. Let's see what else. Ichthyosis mild form. Possible. Cool. Look that up. He's a carrier for Finnish major sour disease mutation. Really cool. Finnish. It's a Finnish disease. Look that up. 1 variant for Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. This I do not trust. I don't trust this whatsoever. This is probably a miscall. No variants for holoprosencephaly. Really good to see. 20 times increased risk of ankylosing spondylitis. This I know is very common. So this is not really even a rare condition. 2.5 times increased risk of rheumatoid arthritis. Really cool. And I don't say anything else. Whatever. We see somewhat increased risk of an autoimmune disorder. We already know that because we already looked at the HLA gene panel. This was there. Alright, and let's skip over everything else. No risk variance for Canavan syndrome, HIV and AIDS panel. Let's see. So he's got protective variant here. He's got 2 protective variants in this variation of HLA. Really good. So it looks like he is quite protected from HIV. We're going to skip over MTRR. It's too boring. And for CBS gene panel, my prediction was correct. Indeed, he is scoring lower levels of homocysteine, lower or intermediate levels of homocysteine. My prediction was indeed correct. He's got a predisposition to lower levels of homocysteine. So that's quite good. So doesn't really have to worry too much about various cardiovascular conditions, cancers. It's homocysteine levels are implicated in a lot of things, from cardiovascular issues to cancers to all kinds of conditions. For thyroid cancer panel, we're going to skip that. For muscular dystrophy myopathies, no risk variance for anything here. No risk variance for ADL, really good to see. I was actually expecting some because this sample seems to have a lot of miscalls, but looks like no miscalls for ADL. Color blindness panel, no risk variance for color blindness in OPN1LW or OPN1SW. FTO gene panel, looks like this individual actually has predisposition to higher odds of obesity. Wow, that's pretty cool. So this individual has a predisposition to being obese based on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Based on these 11 SNPs, this individual has a predisposition to higher odds of obesity. Really cool. So this picture right here might actually be a good indication of what this individual looked like. For syncope panel, based on 7 SNPs, this individual has a slightly higher than average also syncope. Guys, my throat is hurting so badly. It is hurting so badly. I'm recording this video a little bit later in the day, and I hate talking when it's later in the day. I usually record my videos in the morning when I just wake up, but it's painful. I have to talk through the pain. So slightly above average odds for syncope. And for biotraits panel, we're going to talk about CLTCL1, right? 1 copy of the hunter-gatherer CLTCL1 gene variant, 1 copy of the farmer variant. Intermediate ability to process carbs and sugars, farmer allele is C. Alright, so 1 copy of the hunter-gatherer and 1 copy of their farmer variant. Pretty typical stuff. It would be very cool if this Eastern hunter-gatherer had 2 copies of the hunter-gatherer variant, but it looks like they got 1 copy of the farmer variant as well. Is there anything I want to talk about here that's besides that? Maybe this high odds of motion sickness, pretty cool. Lower predisposition to anger. Wet earwax, normal or smellier body odor, pretty cool. Typical for non-East Asians. Alright, nothing much I want to talk about. And we're gonna get into blood group panel right now. So for the blood group panel, this is gonna answer the question of this individual who asked me in the comments, what is the blood type of this sample? The blood type of the sample is type O at 76% likelihood. Followed by that is type A at 23.8% likelihood, and it's definitely not type B or type AB. The likelihood for type B or type AB blood type for this sample is very, very low. It's below 1%. So this sample is most likely type O blood type at 76% odds, or type A at 23.8% odds. Well, thanks for watching my video until the very end. Make sure you check out the description for the link to purchase my trait predictor. I will be releasing a new version in a couple of days. The new version of Trait Predictor will include a lot of new features. There will also be a sale for maybe a week. I will be lowering the price a little bit for a week. And make sure you check out the description. Thanks for watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Goodbye.